Assalamualaikum to Dr. Nurshida binti Othman. I am NURHANISAH binti MAHADI and I am going to start presenting about the risk assessment in the context of business operation risk in the COVID-19 pandemic scenario. Before we jump into the steps, let me brief a little about the risk. Operational risk summarizes the chances and uncertainties a company faces in the course of conducting its business operation activities, procedure, and system. F&B companies across the world, from cafe and restaurant owner to big name food manufacturer and retailer, continue to feel the impact of COVID-19, said Hills 2020.
Before we move to the objective, peril, hazard, and loss, let me introduce myself first. My name is Husna binti Muhammad TAMIZI, and I am going to talk about the objective, peril, hazard, and loss. So the first one is the objective, which are to improve the sales during the pandemic, to maximize the profit, and to ensure the business can operate efficiently. The second one is peril, which are inability to operate frequently and unfamiliarity with online applications. The third one is hazard, which are surplus stock and shortage of raw materials. And the last one is loss, which are forced to close down and decrease in revenue.
The risk affected in business operation falls into two types, which are risk of unemployment and risk of health. We will proceed to explain both risks along with the 5 steps of risk management process. The first step is identifying existing and potential risks. In the context of unemployment risk, the existing risk will be an increase of unemployment. The restaurant and cafe have already been forced to close due to lockdown, said Hills 2020. Therefore, fully 15% of adults report that they personally were laid off or lost their job because of coronavirus outbreak. The potential that will occur is losing a job due to unprecedented job loss during the pandemic. Breadwinners need to earn money to support their family to keep up with the daily expenses such as paying car loan, grocery spending, and many more. Also, there will be an increase in debt as the high debt rate will cause the business owner to have difficulties in balancing their business financial planning. For example, buying a raw material on a small scale because they need to balance their financial budget in order to pay off their existing short-term and long-term debt.
So I will proceed with step 1. The existing risk for the business operations in terms of health is decline in health conditions, which is bring to minor symptoms, for example flu. Influenza or flu is a disease caused by a virus that infects the respiratory tract. It can cause mild or serious symptoms. The common symptoms are flu, fever, pharyngitis, cough, headache, and diarrhea are the common health conditions for nations people. Next, I will proceed for potential risk. For potential risk is getting infected by COVID-19, which can be fatal or death, as coronavirus is a contagious disease. Living with someone infected with the virus puts everyone at high risk. COVID-19 can attack the body in a variety of ways, damaging the lung, heart, kidney, liver, and other organs. And for some people, it may include long-term respiratory problems, heart complications, and chronic renal dysfunctions. Moreover, this COVID-19 can affect someone's well-being and also can bring to fatal. This is seen when the death toll in Malaysia exceeds 30,000 cases. Malaysia has the highest or the greatest per capita death toll, making it the 4th highest country in Asia.
Before we move to the next step, let me introduce myself first. My name is PUTERI ERYNNA. Therefore, I'm going to clarify the step 2, which is evaluating the potential risk for unemployment, and continue by the risk of health. The frequency for unemployment is high, as the potential risk frequency of losing a job in Malaysia is intensified, corresponds to the existing risk of a business operation, particularly in the F&B industry during the COVID-19 outbreak. According to the source of Malaysia's official statistic, it is mentioned that the highest unemployment rate is in June 2021, that climbed to 4.8%. The number of unemployed persons escalated 40.6 thousand persons to 768.7 thousand persons. A company that is suffering a genuine financial difficulties as a result of a COVID-19 outbreak is authorized to minimize the workforce by reducing the working hours and also retrenching their employees. Meanwhile, for the severity is also high, as apparently COVID-19 has tremendously brought an impact to the business operations as the revenues continue to be affected. Result shows that 86% expected significant revenue drop due to the direct impact of the outbreak, and it will subsequently increase the debt as the F&B industry still has to pay commitments such as employee salary, rental fee, cost of raw materials, electric bills, and also transportation, despite of the losses that they are facing during COVID-19 outbreak. Therefore, it will cause bad debt to the business of the F&B industry as they need to proportionate some amounts between their debt and also business expenses, which leads to high severity to the risk of an increase in debt.
The next step is evaluating the potential risk. So, in terms of health, the frequency is considered very high. This can be seen in the Sitka Eating House and Wine Bar, like Kuala Lumpur reported that one of their staff working in the kitchen had confirmed to be positive with COVID-19. Another case is at Gold Dragon City restaurant located at Selangor, where some of their employees are also confirmed to be positive, so they had to close the business for a while to do some cleaning. The next is severity. This can be considered as high since COVID-19 escalates very quickly. So in Singapore, we could see that some of the employees in the F&B, known as the FAUZIs, got tested to be positive. Meanwhile, the number of deaths in Malaysia as of 24 November 2021 as reported to be about 30,147 and has the highest number of deaths, which is 913 million, in between Asian and East Asian.
Next, we move to the step 3, which is evaluating, reviewing, and controlling the risk management program. One of the loss prevention of unemployment is pay cut salary. A state and local government continue to pass orders mandating the temporary closure of certain businesses. Employees in food and beverage industries also been affected, so they may find themselves with severely decreased staffing needs. With a growing number of companies in F&B industry sector hit by the coronavirus pandemic are turning to pay cut instead of layoff to reduce their labor costs. For instance, in order to save jobs during these tough situations, most of the employees have a mutual agreement to pay cut their wages due to reduction of working hours, since the business operations during the pandemic become shorter hours than usual. Additionally, to ensure safe job, employees need to maintain their performance and attitude by ensure to thrive in their roles, such as bring a fresh idea, a good business plan, to improve sales of company, especially during the pandemic situations. This is because most of the company of F&B industries will reduce their workers, as they cannot pay wages due to the COVID-19 since the business is affected, and they need to cover higher costs, such as the raw material, high rental fees, and food suppliers.
As for the loss reduction, which can reduce severity, a person can do a part-time job such as being a food delivery rider. As the table shows, for instance, the Grab food rider can at least earn 10 ringgit per order. The estimated monthly income would be 1,600, which helps a person to pay off their debt when they are unemployed. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, people also can start doing an online business, which requires staying at home without needing to have physical contact with customers. Starting a business will add an additional burden on the personal finance. However, if the online business grows well, it subsequently helps to pay off short-term debt such as car loan, utilities, and many more. A person can start to do online business like selling accessories, selling cookies, and many more in a few social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook.
Now we move to the step 3 in terms of health. Before we go further, let me introduce myself. My name is KHAIRUNNISA binti Muhammad FAUZI. So in this part is divided by 2 parts, and now I will proceed with the loss prevention in health risks. The first point is implement SOP at the workforce, an essential aspect to work in alignment and according to SOP, especially during this pandemic. Implement the SOP during this pandemic is really work to reduce the worker or the customer from the infection of this virus by wearing masks, check body temperature, wash your hand regularly, scan my signature, and so on. The second one is monitor your health daily. You should be alert with the symptom of COVID-19, such as if you feel fever, cough, shortness of breath, or the other symptom of COVID-19. Monitoring your health is very important if you are running errands, going into the office, and setting where it may be difficult to keep physical distance of 6 feet. The second part is loss reduction. How to prevent the infection of this virus is clean and disinfect. The workers need to do diligent to clean and disinfect the restaurant, especially at dining area, waiting area, and kitchen, where the food is prepared, and the other crowded places in the restaurant. The last choice is to get vaccinated. It's actually the last choice that we have to stay fit during this pandemic. If you are fully vaccinated, you can maximize protection and prevent possibility of spreading of COVID-19 to the others, but the vaccine is still in the clinical trial.
And the next step is where we'll select and implement risk management programs.
Due to the start of COVID-19 pandemic, it is massively affected to the organization's profitability in terms of the financial criteria. Financial planning is crucial for any business to succeed and thrive, especially F&B industry, as one of the main businesses to operate during the pandemic forced life sustainability. Revisions of a budget and also business strategy are profoundly important for the F&B industry in ensuring the smooth and also the continuity of our operations. For example, business owners need to do a delicate budget planning on the business expenses, and also they need to proportionate some amount for emergency fund. 59% of the business leaders are reworking their budget plans and also the predictions in the light of the pandemic effects, and then it is followed by a revisions of the business strategies and also goals by 50%. Meanwhile, cash flow preservation is a key focal point for 42% of the business facing negative disruptions from COVID-19.
Hi, my name is IZZATI SAIFUDDIN, and now I move on to the non-financial part. The pandemic has led a lot of people into desperation because of job losses and perhaps being stuck at home with family members for too long. And non-financial planning is important for businesses to survive in the pandemic. And moreover, regulations of operational risk management and strategic risk management are quite juvenile and less of age than for financial risk. Non-financial risks are not directed by a consolidated team, but it is actually a wide range of frontline employees over each business area.
Next, we move to the last step, which is examining alternative risk management technique. The F&B industry has lost nearly 3.1 million jobs, and there are some of projected to permanently close due to the bioeconomic fallout caused by the pandemic COVID-19. So, they minimize the workforce by shortened working hours and impact on high frequency of unemployment risk as well as high severity increase in debt. Meanwhile, in this last step of risk assessment is by evaluating and review the risk assessment will help us to identify who may be at risk, such as the employees in F&B industries during pandemic COVID-19, and what is the potential risk that might be happen and how we need to prevent the frequency and severity from become worse time to time. Therefore, by evaluate, review, and control risk management enable us to take a further action required and predict the possible consequences that might occur, that you are able to minimize the level of its risk by adding control measures as necessary.
So, moving on to the last step, in terms of health, the effect of risk could change from time to time. We need to evaluate and review in assessing the possibility of the risk in food and beverage industry. So the COVID-19 impact might change in terms of their frequency and severity. That's why we need to keep up to date with the time changing and evaluate whether the past techniques are still relevant to be used or not. So we need to evaluate, review, and control the risks as because mistakes are made. Reviewing all the techniques are good because we can recheck what risk technique that we should replace that suits with the situation. So if we made a mistake by choosing the wrong technique, it can be because we might not assess the situation properly before. So the selected techniques are not suitable to be used. By evaluating, reviewing, and control the risk helps in making a clear decision to ensure that the risk can be avoided and reduced.
The COVID-19 virus has disrupted and rearranged the workplace with the breathtaking speed. On the perspective of health risks of food and beverage industry, we can suggest that workforce separation by create Team A and Team B. Team A work in the restaurant while Team B work from home. For the example, who are Team A, they will work in week 1 and week 3 for every month and vice versa for the Team B. By do a separation of workforce indirectly curb the spreading of increasing the case of COVID-19. The second one is limit the person who can enter and closure the premise. The premise can do their own SOPs such as limit the people who can enter their restaurant to make sure every people still stay 2 meters from the others, such as limit only 15 people allowed into the restaurant at a time. Also, they should do a full closure if a known cases of coronavirus among their staff or the customer is discovered. During this time, the cleaning and sanitize the restaurant will take place. From this action, we can take care of each other by our own. Last but not least is do the saliva test kit every week on their employees. So by use the saliva test kit once a week is actually really help the organization to detect the employees who are maybe get infected with this COVID-19. If the result test kit is positive, the manager can give their workers leave to stay at home and do their quarantine at least for the 10 days.
And the recommendation for unemployment is the requirement to attentively assess the outer states of affairs. This is where a lot of businesses are forced to close down at separate times during the pandemic in order to cut down their employees to cut losses. And instead of firing them in order to cut losses, the employers must first think about the requirement in order to assess the exterior state of affairs, as the financial conditions of all employees should be put into consideration. The second one is making evaluations based on the individual's strength and even growth edges. These evaluations should only be made specifically because they have an effect on the present state of affairs. By doing an evaluation to filter out the abilities of the employees, this will also help by further strengthening the business.
In conclusions, all 5 steps in assessing the risk can help us identify, evaluating, controlling, selecting, and examining the best method to be applied. The impact of COVID-19 on business operation can be seen very clearly. All of the risks have been proven to be quite dangerous and can result in many losses to people or businesses. The losses from the impact of COVID-19 are strong, since it is affecting our health as well as making people become unemployed. To reduce this contagious virus from more alarming, we need to play our role, which is to follow all the standard operating procedures that have been stated by the Ministry of Health. We must always be sensitive to our environment and should ensure that everything is in good conditions, because we can easily get the infections of COVID-19, which could reduce our health conditions.